Somewhere right now, a man worth $40 million is checking the time on a $10 Casio. And 3 tables away, someone drowning in credit card debt is wearing a gold Rolex. Let that sit for a moment. We have been trained our entire lives to believe that wealth looks a certain way. That it glitters, that it announces itself, that it wears a $50,000 watch and drives a car you can hear before you see it. But the people who actually have the most money, the ones whose families have held wealth across generations, they quietly laughed at that idea a long time ago. There is a reason the Casio F91W has been in continuous production since 1991. It costs around $10 to $20 depending on where you buy it. It tells the time, it has a small light, that is essentially it. And yet this watch has appeared on the wrists of tech founders, old European aristocracy, professors at elite universities, and people who could wire 7 figures before lunch without blinking. This is not a coincidence. To understand why, you need to understand something about the psychology of money that most people never get taught. There are 2 completely different relationships a person can have with wealth. One is about having it. The other is about being seen having it. And those 2 things are not the same. In fact, more often than not, they are opposites. Think about the last time you saw someone pull up in a flashy car. What was your first instinct? Maybe admiration. But right underneath that, if you were being honest, there was a question. Why does he need me to know that? Real confidence does not need an audience. Real security does not need a stage. Old money families understand this at a cellular level because they have seen what happens when wealth is tied to image. They have watched distant relatives burn through inheritances trying to keep up appearances. They have seen how the performance of wealth eventually becomes more expensive than wealth itself, and they made a quiet decision somewhere along the way. They decided to opt out. This is where the Casio becomes something much more than a watch. It becomes a philosophy. It becomes a statement that is only visible to people who already know the code. When someone with genuine generational wealth wears a Casio, they are not being cheap. They are being fluent in a language that most people have never been taught. There is a concept in old money culture sometimes called studied nonchalance. The idea is that the truly established never try too hard. Their clothes fit well but are not flashy. Their homes are beautiful but not ostentatious. Their watches work perfectly but do not demand your attention. Everything about them says, I have nothing to prove. And nothing says that louder than a $10 Casio on a wealthy wrist. Now, contrast that with the world luxury watch brands have built. Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet. These are extraordinary pieces of engineering, there is no question. But ask yourself honestly, who is buying them and why? Research consistently shows that luxury goods purchases spike in people who feel socially insecure or who have recently experienced an increase in income. First-generation wealth almost always announces itself. It cannot help it. That announcement is part of the reward for all that hard work. There is nothing wrong with that, but it is a very different thing from what old money is doing. When someone buys a gold watch to signal success, they are making a trade. They are spending money to purchase the perception of having money. Old money finds this circular and, frankly, a bit exhausting. Why would you pay $50,000 for someone else to think you are successful? If you are already successful, who exactly are you buying that watch for? Warren Buffett wears a cheap watch. Mark Zuckerberg famously wore a Casio for years. The late Ingvar Kamprad, founder of IKEA and at one point one of the wealthiest men on earth, was known for his extreme frugality, flying economy and shopping at flea markets. These are not men who could not afford better. They simply did not see the point. And here is what is really interesting about that. Their restraint was not modesty for the sake of appearances either. That would be its own kind of performance. It came from something more fundamental. When you are deeply secure in who you are and what you have built, external validation loses its pull entirely. The watch is for telling time. The car is for getting somewhere. The house is for living in. That is it. Function wins. There is also something to be said about what happens when you remove status signaling from your decision-making. Suddenly, every purchase becomes rational. You are no longer paying a premium for a logo. You are not choosing things based on how they photograph or what other people might think at a glance. you start making decisions based entirely on value and quality and what actually serves your life. Old money has been doing this quietly for decades, while new money has been funding the entire luxury industry.
This creates an almost invisible divide. Two people walk into the same room. One is wearing a gold chronograph with a bracelet that catches the light. The other is wearing a Casio. Most people in that room will assume the man in the gold watch has more money. Some of them will be right.
But the old money in the room will glance at the Casio and feel something more like recognition, like spotting someone else who speaks the same language. It is a signal, but it only works in reverse. It is invisible to people who are not already in the know. And that exclusivity, the kind that cannot be purchased, is exactly the point. Now, you might be wondering if this is all just romanticized frugality. Maybe some of these wealthy people just do not care about watches at all. And that is partly true, but it goes deeper than indifference. There is an active distrust of status symbols in old money culture, not because they are too expensive, but because they are seen as a trap. The moment you need a symbol to feel wealthy, you have handed your sense of identity over to an object, and objects can be lost, stolen, depreciated. Your actual financial intelligence cannot. This is why old money invests in things that do not show: education, land, relationships, quietly compounding assets that nobody at the dinner table would ever know about. While new money is visible, old money is structural. While new money performs, old money positions. The Casio is the physical embodiment of that entire worldview. It does not care if you notice it. It keeps perfect time for a decade on a single battery. It is waterproof, shock-resistant, and so unpretentious, it almost disappears. In a world of noise, it is silence. And if you know what you are looking for, that silence is deafening. There is a final piece to this that most people miss entirely. When you stop spending energy on how you appear, something unexpected happens. You start accumulating at a completely different rate. The money that was leaking out through image maintenance, luxury subscriptions, vehicles with payments that make your chest tight, it stops leaving. It compounds instead. The Casio on your wrist becomes a reminder every time you check the time, a quiet philosophy embedded in plastic and a cheap battery that tells you exactly who you are deciding to be. The truly wealthy do not need a watch that costs more than a car to feel important. They feel important because of what they know, what they have built, and what they are quietly continuing to build while everyone else is distracted by the shine. The real status symbol has never been on anyone's wrist. It has always been in the account nobody knows about.